So I'm excited to share with you this morning for a few minutes. I just entitled this talk, "This is a Move," because it's kind of the best way to wrap up what I've experienced in the past year of my life. And I know I wrote this. It's leading a team to push for more, how to turn up the spiritual temperature in a climate where it's been set for you. To give a little context. I don't come from a church that looks, sounds, and operates like Bethel. It's more of a stereotypical mega church. We have 14 campuses, and I've been responsible for leading those worship leaders at those different campuses, which has been an incredible honor. And it's just to give you an idea of where I'm speaking from, it's kind of one of those, we do 2 songs up front, a 35-minute message, 2 songs at the end, and we're done. Hour 5, hour 10. Anybody else kind of like that? Okay, then this is awesome. Okay, so I'm going to be speaking out of a place of this is, that's been my context. Essentially what this should be titled is, how do you take Bethel home? Especially if your pastor doesn't want that. I just know that's a reality for many of you. You're like, I don't know if I want that, So I love that you came to this class. Probably means you're like a little worship misfit, a little problem maker. But no. So just a little bit of backstory. So that's been my normal context year after year. And then something happened. One of my best friends, who is our music director, his name's Micah. He had a disease for about 4 or 5 years, and they basically couldn't really figure out what it was, but they got it close. They said it's probably MS of the gut. So Micah, sometimes when we'd be leading worship, he literally would have to go off the stage, and he'd be laying on the floor, vomiting blood. Really, really serious. He got, skinny as a twig. Couldn't eat anything. Just crazy. It took over his life, and his wife is like a nurse, so it's just kind of crazy. She was so dedicated to figuring out what this was, but really couldn't figure it out. Couldn't get him healed. And then one day, we had a friend tell Micah, "Hey, there's this guy in Nashville. You should have him call and pray over Micah." He's actually a really well-known, and at least if you're kind of in the underground, if you look at who writes what worship songs, great songwriter. His name's Joshua Silverberg. And he just carries this grace for healing. And some of you guys know who that is? Awesome. He wrote Miracles. So he calls Micah one day, and they played phone tag, and finally gets hold. This is really cool, too. In one of my other sessions, I said, trust the nudges. And I'm not going to say this to take credit, but I will say, because it happened, I remember a few days before this, I remember going up to Micah, and I was like, I don't know why, because you've been prayed over for years. I don't know why, but I feel like God's going to heal you really soon. I don't know. I know why, but I feel like it's about to happen. It's coming really soon, but when it happens, it's going to be put on display so that thousands of people can get healed from your story. And it was like 2 or 3 days later, Joshua Silverberg, I'm going to try to make this fast because I'm going to get to my practical points, but basically calls him over the phone, Nashville to Charleston. 15 minutes go by, nothing happens. He's like, okay. He's like, all right, let me pray again. Let's go back in. Starts praying again. All of a sudden, boom, electricity just starts coursing through his body. His wife's right there. He's like, babe, this is crazy, but my body's like I literally feel that electricity. And so all of a sudden, all his symptoms go away, and Micah's completely healed. And so he says, go, test it out. And so he goes outside. He could never run. He used to play basketball all the time. Couldn't play basketball. He would just start throwing up. It would make him super nauseous. And so he goes outside, and he just starts doing laps around his house. And he's like, I'm completely different. I'm completely healed. And so what that did for us is when you experience something like that, you can't go back. And so my church found out, my pastor found out about that. And so we're like, then my pastor's sister has cancer. And so he's like, well, let's have Joshua come in and pray for her, but I don't want to limit it to just her. Let's have him pray for the whole church. And when I heard him say one time from the platform, hey, we're going to gather for our monthly worship night. So we have our weekends, and we had once a month worship night where we got a little bit more flowy. If you heard my other session, it was more like, let's do a few more choruses, a few more bridges. And that was about as, freaky, let's get weird as we got. Definitely not some of the stuff you saw up here last night, which, by the way, was a writing session. I don't know if you guys caught on to that, but we basically wrote that. We're writing that song as we release the sound. Anyways, where was I? So he hears about it. We're like, hey, let's bring Joshua Silverberg in. He prays for our church at our worship night. None of us. What I was going to say is, when I heard him say, hey, we're going to have this worship night, and we're just going to call it Miracle Night, I was like, what? Like, that's how, are you serious? Are we doing this? Like, what? So it's so cool. And so Joshua comes, he brought a friend with him, and they pray over our church. We had 800 people show up that night, and over 200 people were healed. We started at 6 o'clock. I remember pulling into my driveway at 2:37 a.m. I couldn't believe it. And we had a meeting the next day to talk about, upcoming series and all that kind of stuff, very mega church type stuff. Great stuff. And we literally just sat there and we just told story after story after story the next morning. And so then we're like, let's do it again. So we had another worship night the next month. 3,000 people showed up. Several hundred people were healed that night. Again, got home at 3 a.m. It was the craziest thing ever. And so that began a conversation. What do we do? Holy Spirit's wrecked our church, in the best way. And so that's kind of, we started to wrestle with is there a lot more that we're missing out on? And so we've made small adjustments on the weekend to prioritize that. But here's the thing. Sunday is still we are laser focused on the first time guest. And we're still trying to figure out what's comfortable. How far do we go? And I know it's a silly question, but and I'm still wrestling with that because I want Holy Spirit. I want His plan. I don't want mine. But how many of you know, you still got to create a flow on Sunday. You guys still, have an idea of what you're going to do, and so that's kind of where we've been. But we've positioned the prayer team down front. They were hidden in the back, so people felt comfortable. Now we've put them up front because we've realized as people are being prayed for, it gives other people courage to actually go up and receive prayer. And we've seen breakthrough weekend after weekend after weekend with still our 2 songs message, 2 songs flow, So we've seen MS healed, we've seen backs healed, shoulders, knees. I literally watched my friend be given arches in her feet. That was the first night. She had flat feet, and as we prayed for her she just said, it was the last person we prayed for. And she's like, this sounds silly, but I just want arches. I've had flat feet my whole life. And so our friend Wes just goes down and kneels down, touches her foot, and just says, so arches grow right now in Jesus. Oh my goodness. And it was literally like that. It was just like, meh. And we're all like, what? I start doing laps around the church. There's only 5 people in the church at this point. We're literally ready to go home. And I just start running. That was so crazy. First time I've ever seen anything like that. On tour, we watched, this was right after this, which is so cool. Trust God's timing, too, because I never would have known how to lead a room in a time of ministry time of healing hadn't it been for those guys modeling it for me. And then God sends me on tour with Bethel, and we get a text from Bill Johnson that says, hey, I heard there's miracles breaking out on the East Coast. Has no idea it's my church and that I'm on the bus getting ready to start tour, that I'm a representative of that church. He goes, but I heard miracles are breaking out on the East Coast somewhere. Jenna, I think you guys are supposed to go after healing on tour. Didn't have that in the plan. It was, bunch of songs, compassion, all that bit, but not that. And so we're like, all right, let's carve out time. I remember Jen looking at me and she's like, hey, we're going to co-lead this thing. And I'm like, what? I don't know what to do. And then I was like, okay, I'm just going to do what I saw Joshua Silverberg do, And we saw a crazy amount of healing on tour. Like literally, if you saw on Instagram, this dude had, like Hunter one night called out metal. This guy had a huge metal plate in his leg and it completely disappeared, dissolved. And then he's like, I've never felt flesh and bone there in like 13 years. So cool. Anyways, all to say, you can experience those things in your church. I really believe that you can. How many of you know God is always moving? But there are special moments where I believe he pours his spirit out in greater measure and in certain seasons for whatever reason, and that's what we've kind of been in. And here's why this is important too. God is always moving, but we can kill it. I think we can kill it. And if enough people get in the way, I don't know exactly how it works, but I know that we can stop it. I've been there. I've felt it. So there are a few things in this season I'm realizing really move the heart of God, and this is from personal experience, and that keeps this movement alive. I'm going to get to the practical stuff, and I'll fly, but just a few things. Hunger. Hunger is so important. This movement we're experiencing did not, by the way, start with our leadership. It started with our worship team. Our worship team has been the hungriest department and people group in our church. And our leadership has caught on and heard about it. And it's honestly, it's just because our worship team has, I think, been the hungriest people in the church. So how is your hunger level? I think about the woman with the blood issue who literally fought her way through the crowd. She didn't wait for Jesus. She reached out and grabbed his robe. Are you that hungry? Is your worship team that hungry? Another thing, hunger, obedience. Will you literally do anything that he tells you? I'm seeing a lot of people that say they want a move of God, they want to experience that in their church, but they're not very willing to do what God wants them to do because it's extremely uncomfortable. It's not always the crowd-pleasing thing to do. So question to wrestle with, are you giving the people in your church, are you giving the people what they want in a service, or are you giving God what he wants? Definitely want to be obedient to whatever he says, not what we come up with. And a lot of times we partner with God and our ideas are his heart. But be careful not to do something just because you know it makes the people on the weekends happy, you know? And then last one, persevering faith. I love this. When Jesus looks at Peter and says, you have little faith, the word faith in this text refers to persevering faith. It wasn't one of size, but of endurance. So we're not talking about loving people, praying for people, walking them through their mess just a few days out of the year. Will you literally do whatever to love people every single day and every moment you come in contact with them? Our church didn't all of a sudden experience this outbreak of healing because we prayed once, like, we want to see healing. And then boom, I'm talking about like our church is like 30 years old. And who knows, this could be accumulation of prayers and faith year after year after year. So like, have faith that is enduring, that perseveres. Like this isn't going to change for you overnight. You're not going to necessarily, and I pray it does. But can you stick in there? Can you hang in there? It's going to probably look more like baby steps and prayer after prayer after prayer. And then you never know when it's just going to like break open like what we've been experiencing. So if you want to experience a move of God, you've got to realize that it starts with you and your own personal revival. Like I said with our worship team, you have to take the responsibility and realize that if you're going to experience it, it's got to start with you. You have to have a personal revival. So I would really look inward and go, what is my relationship with God? What does my hunger look like with God? Is it something that, I love this quote, light yourself on fire with passion and people will come from miles to watch you burn. This is by John Wesley. Light yourself on fire with passion and people will come from miles to watch you burn. Are you burning? Are you burning? The only way I know to catch up my team and get them involved and get them excited about pushing for more is if I'm on fire. That's got to look attracting, you know, and it's only, moved like a wildfire because it started with a few, and we've just burned so passionately, and we've not given up. And we've had faith that was just enduring, and just we've prayed time and time again, and it's eventually caught other people on fire. So just know, like, no one's going to light that fire for you. You've got to light it. You got to let Jesus light that fire. It's got to be cultivated. It's got to be created. It's got to be ignited between you and your relationship with God. Okay, so some practical stuff. I think I have like 10 or 11 points or something. Is this cool? Is this good? All right. Let me start with the one that's like the least fun, but you just have to know. To experience and to push for more, experience a move of God, you got to honor your leadership. This has been a challenge for us lately. For us, again, like I said, our worship team's been the pioneers for this. And we've watched our leadership catch on. And I don't say that to dishonor them. It's just, they've literally said that from the platform. Our worship team is pushing us to go after more. But you have to be in alignment with your senior leader, or it's not going to happen, or it won't last. I know it like kind of stinks to hear this, but like I say it because it's good for you. Like, you need to know this, because it could be super frustrating if you're pushing and they're not on board. You're going to be frustrated time and time again. When you align your culture with your primary leader, he becomes a co-champion to your culture, and that's what you want. You do not want your senior leader to be against you. Like I said, realize it's going to take some time. Baby steps are important. Please don't leave your ministry just because it's taking them time to come around. I think we get really, really quick. We're quick to want to give up. And also, please, like with those things, when you're frustrated and you're waiting, keep your mouth shut. Don't talk. Don't like. If you're going to complain, if you're going to throw up, do it up, not down. Don't do it with people in your team or even people beside you. If you're going to complain up. Go to your leader and say, hey, this is what I'm wrestling with. Help me understand. Help me know how to handle this. I think it says, if your worship culture and your pastor's vision don't align, you'll always be disappointed and frustrated. Be willing to have the hard conversations and see their side. A lot of times I've been like, why don't we do this? Why don't we add da-da-da-da? Like, really, really simple, practical thing. I want to add more worship time on the weekend. How many of you know that affects not just what's happening in the main room, but that means 10 more minutes of those amazing people watching your crazy children who are freaking out, they're hungry, they're crying. So realize this, every decision you make affects multiple people and departments. And so realize that it's not as easy as just going, hey, and sometimes it is, but can we add another song? Can we do this? Ask yourself before you even present that, who's this going to affect, and how can I come up with a solution beforehand? Or even rally those team leaders, those departments, and go, hey, how do you feel about this? I was going to present this to my leader. How do you feel about this? Would your team be equipped to handle 10 more minutes? How do you feel about it? Okay, know the purpose for each one of your experiences. Like I said, our Sunday context is, I mentioned this in my another talk, but think about it as like rooms in a house. Our weekend, we're unapologetic about it. It's for the first-time guest, and we want them to feel comfortable. We want their family to come back, and so there's going to be some things we're just going to steer away from, or we're not going to go for, I guess, if you say, I don't know. And so that's our living room culture. The first time you bring somebody over your house, where do you bring them? The living room. You're not going to, like, if you have a best friend, like girlfriends, y'all are probably cool with, like, bringing your girlfriend into your bedroom and I don't know. That sounds super weird, but you know what I mean? Like, let me say this. When we have people over the first time, my wife definitely is not letting our bedroom door just be open for them to see what our bedroom looks like. You know what I'm saying? But if it's like my best friend or like my brother-in-law and he comes up, like she doesn't care. But a lot of times I've heard her say, she's like, shut the door, they're about to be here, you know? And so I think for us, the weekends was living room. And then our first Wednesday, the first Wednesday of the month, we did these worship nights, and it has become like healing miracle night. that was like our bedroom culture. That was our core team where we are comfortable going for more, and we are comfortable with not having to explain everything, if that makes sense, you know? So just know the purpose for your worship experience. What is the ultimate goal besides the obvious of worshiping God? All right, number 2. So honor your leadership. Number 2, be the thermostat, not the thermometer. Set the temperature every time you gather. I don't care how tired you are. I have come into Sunday mornings exhausted, frustrated, but I have made it my goal to put that stuff aside and realize that it's my responsibility and my opportunity to set the temperature. No one else is going to set it for me, but I get to set the temperature. And even if you're on the front row and you're not on the platform, you can set the temperature in the room. I've watched time and time again a worshiper on the front row like be so expressive and responsive to God, it's lit the whole room up. And encourage me at the same time. Some of you, your team needs to know that you're a worshiper. Like, one of the best things you could do is get on the front row while your team is leading and go harder after God than them. Encourage them, challenge them. One of the best things my pastor said is, I dare you to go after God harder than me this year. Like, I dare you to. And so be willing to show them that. Be the hungriest in the room, no matter what. Number 3, I gotta go. I got 6 minutes, my goodness. Never stop expecting God to move. Another one of my favorite quotes is, expectancy is the breeding ground for miracles. What kind of breeding ground are you creating with your team? If you're expecting the same experience weekend after weekend, that's probably what you're gonna get. Man, I gotta skip some stuff. Number 4, never stop communicating the why. If you're a leader of your team, can't stress this enough. Proverbs, obviously, 29:18, you've probably heard this, where there's no vision, the people perish. Vision leaks. So as you're pushing for this, realize that your team's coming, probably a lot of your team's coming to run through rehearsal, just coming from a 9-to-5 job. They're frustrated at their boss. You know, they're not coming in going, I'm expecting a move of God today, you know? So you have to communicate that over and over and over again. Vision leaks. So don't connect people to the what you're doing. Connect them to the why, and they'll stay on board. And keep. Just when you get to the point where you're like, I am annoying the bejesus out of my team with saying, this is why we're doing it. This is why we're doing it. This is why we're doing it. It's because of him. It's because of her. It's because of this. Just when you're annoying the heck out of them, they're probably just now getting it. I'm telling you. Remind them why we're doing songs about miracles. Remind them why we're carving out time to pray before service, after service, that we're going to stay late and pray for people. Why? Okay. Oh, man. Never say, my people won't. XYZ. As their leader, never say, my people won't respond in worship. My people just won't pray. My people, they won't sing loud. How many of you have said that? I'm like, my people, they just won't lift their hands. They won't. As their leader, it's our responsibility to help them understand why we do those things. Instead of saying my people won't, I would encourage you to say this: I have not led my people to raise their hands or understand why they would raise their hands. I have not led my people, our people, to understand why we sing out, why we shout. You've got to be a worship teacher, not just a worship leader. Carve out time to teach people why we do this. All right, number 5, share stories. Literally last night, I think all we did was share stories about how God's moving, and nothing just ignited the fire, kept the fire burning. Like for me, I literally was ready to do laps last night just hearing some of these stories. Share stories with your team. The easiest way to get them stoked and to connecting them to the why is by putting a face on it. Like reminding them this person's life, like Micah's life was forever changed. And now Micah's become this radical prayer and just has this grace for healing. And like remind your team, they're not coming in thinking about those things all the time. I carry these stories like in my back pocket essentially everywhere I go because I know it ignites faith for other people. Number 6, celebrate as often as possible. Get creative with the ways that you celebrate these stories of life change. Like I said this the other day, but you'll eventually suffocate what you don't celebrate. Celebrate culture that you want to see repeated. Celebrate behavior that you want to see repeated. A little parenting tip as well. We literally have a wall at our church where we write down all the like really cool stuff that God is doing. And I'm prophesying we're going to have a wall that is full of wheelchairs and everything that people have been delivered from, signs that they've been, cancer reports, like, healed, gone. Like, I want a wall just to remind people why we do what we do. I got to move really fast. Number 7, get creative. When it comes to programming moments, get really creative. Make it really hard for your pastor to say no because of all the great ideas that you have. Make your weekend experience, just ask this question, how can I make it 10% better this weekend? Or 1% better, 1% better. If every week, how can I make it 1% better or push for a little bit more? Take baby steps. Practical, just worship leader thing. I have a note in my phone that's called Flowtown, and it is all the songs I know, like I could pull out at the last second between songs and just like, and so a lot of times before I go out for a set, I'll just kind of remind myself, Jesus, we love you. Great are you, Lord. What a beautiful name. Here for you. This is a move. Plug. This is Amazing Grace. Better is one day. Miracles. Holy Spirit. Build my life. Oh, praise the name. Holy ground. Healer. Bless the Lord. Great are you, Lord. So good. You can do it twice. Surrounded. God is so good. Our God reigns. Reckless love. How great thou art. How great is our God. Like there's so many songs that you could send this to your team and go, hey, be ready for any of these. They're so simple. And just a really practical way to like get your team ready for flow, for like a flow moment if that happens. The last thing you want to do is get ready or like be so excited like we have an opportunity to flow, but then like no one knows what to do or like where to go, So just have some options in your back pocket. Number 8, pray a lot. Prayer isn't a part of the ministry, it is the work of the ministry. If you don't have a praying team, you're not going to have a team that experiences the supernatural. Create moments. My team is now a praying team, where now it's like, okay, guys, we really have to get to run through now. But it was not that way. And we've had to create space where it's been awkward at first, but create awkward space to give your people a chance to step out and pray. If you're always talking, always praying, it's never going to give them opportunity to stretch that muscle, okay? It's not a movement if it's just you. There's got to be a second person. A movement was never started by one person. It was always started when the second person started following the one. So make sure it's not just you. Prophesy a lot. Write what you want to see. Speak what you want to see. Also, speak life. Don't say, here's what I would challenge you with, even when you're leading. Use language like, I'm so grateful that our church is a worshiping church. I'm so grateful that our God, as you go into a song about healing, I'm so grateful that our church values healing and praying for people. Even if you don't really see that, speak it over them and help them see that. You're right, I do love to worship, I do value praying for people and seeing healing. Prophesy a lot. Be sneaky with it too. Put it in your songs. If your pastor is like, I'm cool with you doing a new song, but I don't want you preaching and talking about prophecy, what we did is we wrote a song called Prophesy. And so we're singing it. But they're not like cool necessarily with me taking 10 minutes and going, hey, let me help you teach. Let me speak about this. We just put it in a song. Might be a sneaky way to do it. Number 10, know that miracles start with a mess. Praying for miracles isn't sexy. It's hard. It's fun to pray for someone and see, and it's amazing to see it break through. But when you have to walk with somebody through cancer month after month, year after year until it's healed, it's not fun. We're not pushing for more to brag about it. We're doing it because we love people. So just remember, it's all about people. And the miracle isn't the goal. It's a goal. But the person healed, delivered, saved, restored, and God receiving the glory from it, that's the goal. All right, I'm out of time. I love you guys.